Hello guys, good to see you again. In today's video, I'm gonna do a completed sharing of the build of Blurry steps and Einherjar. We'll mainly focus on dream interpretation of the new gear crafting system, like which gears should I actually put in dream interpretation, and what kind of affixes are needed to bring the most bang for the buck. Currently, I'm just at level 100. If you're a player at the international server, you may search for 米宗剑灵速刷 in the one-click recommendation to see my build. As to the specific DPS, now I've removed 3 support skills, but it can still be around 500 billion. The survival, you can see it's about 20 to 40 million. The link 5 skills are just like this, to bring us the biggest benefits. In terms of Soul Candle, I didn't play Edna quite much, so I bought the Soul Candle. The key affixes are, the main skill is supported by a level 21 projectiles, minus the projectile quantity, which brings maximum gain. Then T1 cooldown recovery speed. By the way, supported 1 projectiles should be T0. Another Soul Candle also needs T1 cooldown recovery speed, and minus 12% sealed mana for aura skills. In terms of the negative affix of the latter one, try to pick the ones that don't affect us, like Command, Channel, Steep Strike, and so on. They don't affect us much. The key is, we need to T1 cooldown recovery speed to get 40% cooldown recovery speed, and we need to T0 affixes. One is minus 12% sealed mana for aura skills, another is supported 1 projectiles. This way we have the most to gain. Besides these 4 affixes, there are 2 affixes left. You can pick what's good for you. I recommend affixes that add your movement speed. This way you can have a better experience of farming. Now my movement speed has been accumulated to 145, and Blurry steps provides 100 more. When farming, the movement speed is about 250. It feels quite good. Of course, if you can get 40 movement speed from the 2 soul candles, the movement speed reaches 185. It will become smoother and more comfortable. Why we need cooldown recovery speed? I'll talk about that in Divine Punishment later. First things first. The 5 linked skills. After level 100, you can use up all 530 energy. When you're done, you can do this. A 5 linked passive skill, for 3 linked ones and 3 for linked ones. Blurry steps is linked to mania, overclock, and extended duration. The movement speed bonus from Blurry steps is only 2 seconds. Extended duration extends it to 2.4 seconds. And I also had more than 12 extended duration in talent. The farming becomes smoother. Rhythm and defensive buffer as standard. Defensive buffer itself is 6 seconds. Rhythm is also 6 seconds. It's a seamless connection. Here I link defense layers. Since I don't have barrier of radiance, defense layers brings energy shield charge. However, there's a downside to defense layers. It decreases 30% duration. So we got extended duration with 21.75% duration. There's still 9.5% left. In talent, you should spend 3 talent nodes to extend duration as much as you can, so that the minus 30% duration can be covered. This way, defensive buffer can keep going on, and can lead to a lot of survival. That's why I have more than 40 million survival. Another is the super powerful Frost Shield, which is triggered by Exquisite Box. Since it is triggered by Exquisite Box, there is no need to consider the shortened duration. There's enough cooldown, so the cast time for each must be under 6 seconds. Then Mark and Blinding is standard. Frost Shield does damage, and its damage triggers Divine Punishment. Mark enables you to mark enemies, so there's no need to make Mark in Arrow and Einherjar. Blinding inflicts blind on enemies, which increases survival additionally. And here's Force Staff. It's linked with defense layers to regain energy shield charge. The standard iron fortification deducts a lot of duration, but since it is triggered by Exquisite Box, you'd better shorten the time to less than 3 seconds. It'll last 3 seconds, and energy shield starts to charge immediately, and defense layers is unbreakable for 2 seconds, so you should shorten the 3 seconds to less than 2 seconds. This way, it's the equivalent of having Barrier of Radiance. Here's Precise Euphoria on hit, linked with Burst of Anger, to bring us movement speed and additional attack speed. Additional attack speed is equivalent to the additional cast frequency of Arrow and Einherjar. Since I have co-resonance in the slate, The other two skills are Precise, Swiftness, and Precise, Steadfast, to make farming smooth and provides 5 cooldown. Then plus Precise, Elemental Resistance. Here I choose Triggered on Critical Strike. If you like Sealed Mana, you can choose Triggered on Hit. Try to use Triggered on Critical Strike if you can, because it won't lessen the curse effect of Elemental Destruction. It's linked with Summon Thunder Spirit, because if you have Fervor in gloves, you can summon Thunder Spirit. If you don't have Fervor in gloves, you may choose Summon Flame Spirit. Another is Precise, Erosion Enhancement, and Precise, Auto Defense, linked with 3 auras and an energy shield. Precise, Weapon Enhancement brings Paralysis. Then it's Precise, Precise Projectiles, done with the skills. Let's see the talent. God of War, Ranger and Warlock. Ranger can be replaced with Shadow Dancer. The advantage of Shadow Dancer is you can get cooldown recovery. When I talk about Divine Punishment later, if you like cooldown recovery, just replace Ranger with Shadow Dancer. I'm sure the cooldown will be enough. Quickly go through the talent. In God of War, you should get some mana restoration, otherwise, there's a chance that you just can't cast Blurry steps. All it takes is a little, because Critical Strike is perfectly adequate. Here's Cohesion. It's also a core. Cohesion makes sure that arrow Einherjar can Critical Strike on every hit. And we don't need to choose too much Critical Strike. The advantage is that you get completely full Critical Strike damage gains, and the gain is super big. Next is the super powerful Instant Smash. It ignores armor. And since armor decreases damage of element, Instant Smash gives us a very powerful boost. We'll get to that later in the weapons talk. Just a little here, since we have Paralysis in aura, so we can save this node. Here both attack speed and critical strike damage can be taken by us. Attack speed is the equivalent of frequency. Here, defense and damage avoiding increase your survival. If you don't have enough nodes, you can deduct and add it here to increase critical strike. If you like duration of what I just said, you can put the 3 nodes here. Add 12 duration to yourself. As long as your defensive effect keeps going on, you won't die suddenly. Next is Ranger. I choose shooting arrows, 20 more, and impending. Or you can choose rapid shots. Get something here. Since we have enough critical strike, the 6 nodes here are totally unnecessary. I go for survival here. Choose life and energy shield. Critical strike damage is a must, because its gain can be totally earned. Here I choose these 6 nodes to get 12 movement speed, making the farming smoother. These 6 nodes are powerful. They bring us all resistance, defense, and damage decrease in proximity. And sealed mana decreasing is a must. Otherwise, aura won't work. You don't need critical strike here either. That saves another 6 nodes, and you can get them for survival. That's also the advantage of this build. Critical strike can eliminate enemies is standard here. The former one are all critical strike damage. Quite good. If you got fervor in gloves, just choose these 5 nodes. If not, save these 5 nodes for others. I don't recommend knockback here, because knockback has been weakened too much this season. It's not very rewarding. And to fill it up, you need 7 talent nodes. It's unnecessary. That's all for here. Next is Warlock. If you choose Shadow Dancer, the first one should be blunt. The second is Open Wounds. Open Wounds need trauma. This way you must replace Erosion Enhancement with Acuteness Imbue to ensure enemies have trauma. Otherwise, the 125 critical strike damage can be dealt. It's a detail. Pay attention to it. Then Warlock has the super powerful Prelude. With Blurry Steps, it is equivalent to a non-main skill, which makes the next main skill deal 30% additional damage. I don't recommend Indifference here, because it has negative effect, which will decrease additional 10 attack speed. It's the equivalent of decreasing additional 10 frequency. And we're not short of the extra 35 cooldown recovery, so Prelude is quite good. Next is Stab in the Back, giving us 50% additional damage. You can see here, I got duration for 3, Just like what I said just now, make sure defensive skill keeps going on. Since we have enough damage, we can put damage increasing nodes to energy shield. Others are all necessary. Sealed mana. Here I choose critical strike damage, because I want to have this 42% critical strike damage. Empower skill effect. Blurry steps and burst of anger can both be empowered. Defensive effects being cut here. So if you don't have enough nodes, these 4 nodes are deductible. It used to be defensive effect. Now defensive effect only comes from exquisite box. That's also why I recommend defensive exquisite box for gears. Cooldown recovery is a must, because you'll be short on it. All the other nodes aren't really necessary, at most, for resistance here. If you lack resistance, you can make up for it here. Here are 12 resistance. If you're not short on it, cut this node, and add movement speed. Here are for 12 movement speed to consider. Then it's Divinity slate. How does the fully completed slate looks like? I highly recommend core resonance and tenacity, because they ensure the efficiency in obtaining blessing after divine punishment. No need to worry about the efficiency of obtaining blessing at all. Gain tenacity blessing on hit. Enter a trait. We can turn tenacity blessing to focus blessing. Make sure we can get the full blessing within 1 second. That is to say, within the 1.33 second of divine punishment. To get all the blessings full, you need tenacity to ensure gaining blessings. Another is core resonance. It can free the 3rd talent. No need to go for sentry talents. It also frees the gloves. No need for lethal resonance. So I recommend the slate of tenacity and core resonance. As to the other 2 affixes, you can choose any useful one. Decreasing sealed mana is quite good. We need to activate relatively much aura, so decreasing sealed mana is necessary. This is pedigree of gods. The small slates are more flexible. You may choose what you like. Here are a few must-haves to talk about. All slates must have a max agility blessing stacks +1. Otherwise, there's no damage in divine punishment. We need at least 5 agility blessings. Of course, if you have agility blessing in your shoes, we'll get to that later. It will be talked about in the gear. Max agility blessing stacks +1 here is unnecessary. At this time, I recommend +1 persistent skill level and 8% additional sentry damage. Try to level up sentry skills to more than 30. Don't need to be too high. 31 or 32 is just fine, but it would be a waste to keep leveling up your skills. Now the skills have been changed. Each level only brings about 6% benefits. That's not as good as the 8% return above. Another 2 slates relatively depend more on luck. If you don't have this kind of good goddess of deception's divinity, in terms of the last persistent skill level, try to find this kind of following affixes can be used. Lack of sealed mana. You may look for the goddess of deception's divinity with 2 decreasing sealed mana. Gradually brand the followings. I believe you have quite a lot of branding materials. Here I choose all skill level and persistent skill level. I didn't craft it well. To get the best one, the last effect should be persistent skill level. This maximizes the benefits of when sparks set the prairie ablaze. Fallen Starlight is expensive, so choose the relatively cheaper one. You should have +1 sentries that can be deployed at a time. The other 3 don't matter much. Of course, it'll be better to have decreasing sealed mana, making a little less pressure on sealed mana for other things. That's all the key points. Some of you may use sparks of mod fire. Over here, you may put a corner of divinity. For example, if agility blessing has reached the max, you may go for focus blessing, or 8 additional attack speed. Put it here. There's another grade left. You can put 1 more sparks of mod fire, but it's expensive, costing more than 2000 FE, so no investment is recommended here. Sparks of mod fire is the equivalent of copying an additional 8% damage, equivalent to 2000 more FE for 8% additional damage. Personally, I don't think it's necessary. You can brand it gradually. It's better. Like this slate, there's at least 6% return, not including the decrease of sealed mana above, and other gains. In terms of value for money, no need to buy sparks of mod fire blindly. Next up is the selection of memories and relics. The gear of divine punishment will also be explained here. The gear of divine punishment is to say, predicted reincarnation should have the full 240 additional damage. Here you can see that regains 2 stacks of focus blessing consumed for every enemy hit by divine punishment. Each legendary monster counts as 5 monsters. That is to say, when hit a legendary monster, if we have 10 stacks of max focus blessing, we can regain 10 stacks. But to reach 2.4 million, we need to regain 30 stacks. and recently means within 4 seconds. Regain 30 stacks within 4 seconds. That is to say, you should make 3 Divine Punishment within 4 seconds, and each Divine Punishment makes you regain 10 stacks, so that you can have the full 240 additional damage. This is what Divine Punishment into first gear means. 3 Divine Punishments in 4 seconds means the cooldown of Divine Punishment should be less than 1.33 seconds. How do you shorten the cooldown? It's originally 7 seconds. Every stack of Focus Blessing consumed can bring 8% additional cooldown recovery speed. In traits, Predicted Hold provides 35% additional cooldown recovery speed, G-Sum Division, and the rest of the cooldown goes from the panel. If you want to go into first gear, I'll give you the data directly. The panel should provide more than 180 cooldown recovery speed. That'll get you into first gear. If you can't get into first gear, how to get full cooldown? Actually, it's theoretically possible going into second gear, which means Divine Punishment has to be hit once in 2 seconds, and hit twice in 4 seconds. Some of you may ask, hit twice in 4 seconds, one enemy counted as 5. How can I get 30 stacks? I only regained stacks at one time. Here's an fix. The second one regains 1 stack of Focus Blessing consumed for every enemy hit by Divine Punishment. This way you can regain 3 stacks at once. A legendary monster equals 5 monsters. 5 times 3. 1 Divine Punishment makes you regain 15 stacks. 15 times 2. Because less than 2 seconds, Divine Punishment twice. So you can have the full 30 stacks. Only if you consume 15 stacks. Which means max Focus Blessing should reach 15 stacks. When there are 15 stacks of Focus Blessing, you can have the full 240 additional damage through Divine Punishment in less than 2 seconds, and the affixes in memories, even if you're in second gear. The choice of memories and relics. Relics. Personally, I think this one is better. 8% additional main skill damage and increasing damage for each stack of Focus Blessing consumed. 3 memories must include 1 Bitter Fruit of Omniscience. If not, it's a little harder to regain. The other 2, I choose 2 Sanity Spheres with 20 movement speed and additional damage for max stacks of Focus Blessing consumed, to increase the efficiency of farming. If you want to go for the damage, you can choose the Place of Oracle for extra 2 stacks, and you can gain Blessing. The chance in the first effect should be as close to 50% as possible. That's 50% of itself plus 50%. And with Tenacity of the Slate, you have the 100% chance to gain Blessing, increasing the efficiency in gaining Blessing. Because if Divine Punishment gets into first gear, you must gain full Blessings in 1.33 seconds. If you cannot, Divine Punishment can consume all Blessings, and the whole system will be in trouble. If you don't like movement speed, you can put to the Place of Oracle. When there are 2 the Place of Oracle, Predicted Harvest is not needed anymore. Because it's already over 100%, you can choose the second Predicted Reincarnation to bring yourself 15 defense and 20 damage increase. It's pretty good too, but you lose 40 movement speed. Okay, that's the end of traits and relics, and then we get to the main event, the gear. How to get the completed gears and dream interpretation affixes. The 3 necessary legendary gears. The first one is Imperial Iron Sentry. Because it has Sentry, here I recommend to corrupt +1 max Focus Blessing stacks. This helmet brings you about 60% additional damage increase because of this +1 max Sentry quantity and a stack of Focus Blessing. Then the necessary Exquisite Box. Defensive Exquisite Box. It brings us both offensive and defensive gear. Defensive effect only comes out from Exquisite Box, so it's a very rare fix. And it's up to 70%. A pretty good gear. If corroding, corrode the first and second effects. If you cannot, corrode the first additional cooldown recovery speed. This will make Divine Punishment get to first gear more easily. Another is Bow of Endless Dusk. I recommend corroding the first and fourth effects. If you can only afford the one with only 1 affix corroded, corrode the first effects rather than the fourth. Because the latter is more expensive, the effects of the 2 are actually pretty much the same. Well, after those 3 essential legendary gears are said and done, when there are only 3 gears can go through dream interpretation. I don't recommend the ring. For the ring, I only recommend Prison Ring with critical strike damage. Since we deal 100% critical strike, the gains from critical strike damage are quite high. Then how to craft it? The first fix is max tenacity blessing stacks +2. The following can be used to fill resistance or critical strike damage. Another one can be used to fill curse effect. Another ring depends on which resistance you lack. Then you can fill it. For example, the whole set is missing cold resistance, so I can choose one cold resistance. Theoretically, I have enough erosion resistance, so I don't need to make erosion resistance. As to another two prefixes, I choose armor and energy shield. To increase my survival, as you can see, my energy shield is up to 12,000, and the survival is about 1.35 million or so when standing still. It can reach about 40 million when dummy testing. And then the resistance are all full. Then, focus on the 4 crafted gears. The chest armor should better go through dream interpretation to get 40% aura effect. The prefixes of the chest armor are 2 energy shields and +2 active skill level. The suffix is aura effect. The other 2 can make up for resistance. For gloves, I recommend to get max tenacity blessing stacks +2 through dream interpretation. The suffix is critical strike damage. If you have fervor, you may choose summon thunder spirit rather than summon flame spirit. If you don't have fervor, choose summon flame spirit. But the T0 fervor provides 20 additional critical strike damage. It's pretty good. Suffix is complementary resistance. Prefix is complementary energy shield. The point is to have max tenacity blessing stacks +2. The shoes and belt. The returns are actually about the same. The shoes can get max agility blessing stacks +1 or 2. Through dream interpretation. Suffixes should be aura effect, 60 movement speed and cooldown recovery speed. Prefixes are armor, damage penetrates elemental resistance. The other one's random. Since you can only put on 3 dream interpretation gears, if the shoes have max agility blessing stacks through dream interpretation, then the belt don't need to go through dream interpretation. If the belt goes through dream interpretation, I recommend damage penetrates elemental resistance. Craft to get energy shield or 50% additional defense gain from chest armor. As the prefix, T0 is 68%. Then defense. Less additional damage taken at low mana. Double resistance to make up for resistance. Then get damage penetrates elemental resistance through dream interpretation. Some of you may ask, why penetrating? You deal physical damage. That's because Bell of Endless Dusk adds 200% of physical damage as fire, cold, and lightning damage. They are elemental damage. That is to say, the physical damage of Thunder Spirit adds 200% additional fire, cold, and lightning damage. This can be seen here. Actually, the damage you dealt. Fire, cold, and lightning damage cover 30% each, while physical damage only covers 10%. That's why ignoring armor of instant smash is very important. That's also why we choose elemental destruction. Rather than vulnerability in skills, 90% of our damage comes from elemental destruction. After the gear explanation, there are some important points to talk about besides penetrating elemental resistance. Another important point is this critical strike. Theoretically, when the gloves of critical strike rating have fervor, you only need about 15. If not, the panel should be 35%. This guarantees a 100% critical strike. If it doesn't reach 35%, choose some talents to add critical strike. And then the other important point is this shoe. I recommend an armor base. Otherwise, the armor will be super low. And it can give us a lot of damage reduction. My energy shield has reached about 12,000. That's enough. Actually, more than 9,000 energy shield is enough. The quality of the energy shield needs to be boosted by the armor. Otherwise, the energy shield might be as vulnerable as paper. If you pursue the high efficiency of energy shield, when resistance is full, there's armor to reduce damage. And for defensive skills, you can undergo almost all the skills except for the clutch shot. And you won't die. Another important point is cooldown recovery. Over here, as what I just said, heal must be over 180 to stabilize Divine Punishment into first gear. The system is better now. In the past, when there was Exquisite Box, the data would change and became inaccurate. Now when there's Exquisite Box, it's automatically calculated. So just look here. It doesn't matter whether Exquisite Box is 600 or 400,000. Just look at this value. In case this value is not enough, just find something to make up for it. When the soul candles are done, you can turn to the shoes. When the shoes are done, turn to the belt. When the belt is done and still not enough, you can change Ranger to Shadow Dancer to get your cooldown recovery into gear. If you can get into first gear, that's pretty good. If not, you can still get the full 240 through blessing regain. In second gear, movement speed is to increase fluidity. So the T060 movement speed is highly recommended for the shoes. Well, that's all for this video.